It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, and joining us now, we have Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Michael Goodwin of the New York Post. Michael, you wrote a really powerful column. It's called 3 Reasons Why I'm Voting for Donald Trump. Explain to everybody.
Thank you, Rita. Yes, look, I started by reading and writing about the New York Times endorsement of Kamala Harris, and it was embarrassingly threadbare. Because try as they might, they couldn't find anything good to say about her other than she's not Donald Trump. And she's begun to have conversations about where she would take the country. Begun? I mean, it's a little late in the game for that. She's been vice president for 4 years and a nominee for months, and she's just starting. So I think it was a low bar that the Times set for her. They basically dropped the bar to the ground. And looking at the comparison of the candidates, it seems to me that there are, if you want to sort of generalize group things, that there are 3 areas to look at. The first is domestic policy, the second is foreign policy, and the third is this onslaught of the progressive ideas, the culture wars. And so I went through each of them, and fortunately there was a Wall Street Journal poll which had just come out, and it talked about that although the race between Trump and Harris is basically tied, that when you look at the internals as to what the respondents felt about each candidate on specific topics, Trump was favored by 10 points on the economy, 16 points on the border, the open border, and then on foreign policy with Israel and Ukraine being the topics. In both cases, the respondents thought he was much better able to handle those things. And so you look at all of these major issues, and there are many within each category, but if you just look at the big picture of domestic and foreign policies, there's no question that Trump's record is far superior to Harris's. And the fact that she won't even detail her policies, I think practically disqualifies her on that basis alone, particularly when she's coming from the Biden administration, which has been a failure, according to all the public polls, and that she says she can't think of anything she would change. So it's not even a contest. And then finally, the culture wars. By that I mean the transgender jihad that the Democrats are on, the use of the courts for political purposes and law enforcement, the lawfare tag, and then of course the indoctrination of children in schools on radical and sexual, racial and sexual agendas. So all of these things, at the end of going through all of that, Rita, it's an easy choice. I mean, Donald Trump is clearly the superior candidate. Now, I have some problems with the way he conducts himself, some of his language in particular, calling people stupid and dumb and imbeciles, and mostly he talks about women that way, which is a particular problem, I think, particularly, especially with the abortion issue so prevalent. Nonetheless, I think his policies are better, and I don't see it being a tough call on that basis. And so I'm, as a columnist, free to say who I'm voting for, and I'm voting for Donald Trump.
You know, it's amazing, Michael Goodwin, as we're hearing all this stuff, too. I think of so much of what we're hearing and seeing is this, we call it sort of a projectionism, gaslighting, because all the things you listed is what they're trying to say about him. And yet the actions he's been the one who's been weaponized by the justice system. He's the one who's trying to secure the border. I mean, I couldn't believe the other day, and Kamala Harris repeated this, that she would put her record up against anybody on the border. I mean, it's astounding. I had the same reaction. I laughed for an hour. Michael, come on.
Now, Michael, Vito Fasella is in the office, and he gave us the price of Exxon stock on November. What was it, Vito?
And November Exxon was in the low 30s. It's now over almost $130. And Marathon Oil was $6, a little over $6. Now it's about $27 a share.
It shows you when President Biden promised poor people it's going to help them, and gasoline doubled or tripled, and at the same time food went up 30 or 40%. So we did not help the poor. We did not help the middle class.
Well, not only that, on gasoline, he's practically taken away more than half of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And he did that just to lower prices. But he hasn't refilled it. I mean, that's for an emergency. And he did it for politics.
And God forbid, I don't know if you heard me say when I was talking to Admiral Stavridis, the similarities of World War II and the possibility of having a World War III. It's very similar. I pray not. But what happens if we don't have the strategic reserve full?
Well, that's right. Then we're more vulnerable. And then prices, if there is an international emergency of some sort, prices would shoot through the roof very quickly. And there would be no reserve in which to really, enter the market with more supply and therefore lower the price. These things... when you pretend that you have forever or that you'll get to it later, I mean, Biden has never done it. He has never refilled it, and it's really another form of dereliction that he has done that. But it's one of many things, yep, John, on the domestic front that the president has sort of live for the day only. Everything, the student loan forgiveness. I mean, no sense at all of the fairness, no sense at all of the budget deficit, the fact that money is essentially borrowed by the government.
Right.
To students. I mean, just no sense of any of this. And where did it get him? It didn't make him more popular because fundamentally he was not a good, strong leader with good policies, and on the international
yep,
stage,
and people see that, Michael. Yep, absolutely.
Well, Trump believes in peace through strength, and they clearly don't.
Yeah, no question. Michael, thank you. We got to take a really quick break. Thank you. So we love having you on, Michael. Thank you. What a great column there in the New York Post.